Welcome once again to the Vault Podcast, where music still matters. My name's Zan, and I'm your host, I guess, or co-host, however you want to word it. But Brent's here today, too. Brent, I'm not going to steal the spotlight from you. How's it going?
Oh, that's fine, man. I probably need out of the spotlight. You know, like everybody says, I've got a face made for radio, so you know what? It's all good.
And speaking of being out of the spotlight, that's what this show's about today. We're going to talk about some of our favorite obscure artists, and we're kind of targeting bands, artists, groups, singers, whatever, that don't fit the bill for anything. You're not going to hear these guys probably anywhere. I mean, some people might follow them on the web or something, but you're never going to hear them on the radio. You're never going to hear them talked about in popular genre circles. What else do you have to say just to kick off talking about obscure artists?
I honestly, you know, you sent me the show idea and everything, and I started looking, and you're like, yeah, I think this one will be easy. And it was honestly the hardest show to prep I think we've done.
Wow.
And I say that because I have this hard time of defining obscure. And I know what it means.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Go ahead.
It's weird because we listen to a lot of music that's not very popular.
Mm-hmm.
But between like me and you and, you know, a lot of the other people we talk to and everything, it's well-known bands. But then you go on, like, you know, their YouTube and stuff, and they don't have very many views. Nobody else has heard of them. And so it's very hard for me to decide what's actually truly obscure and what's not.
For me, I think there's a couple different things that kind of categorize obscure artists. Availability, that's one. Are you even able to order their stuff online? Because sometimes you can't, and there's a couple of these bands that I think are in that category. And you can also use online presence, like you said, with maybe they've got YouTube videos up, but how many views have they had? You know, if there's probably some where our new shows have more views than these bands that have been out for a while, and that is obscurity to me. And then the last thing is just the sound. You know, we might listen to some black metal or some death metal or, you know, disco or something. Who knows? And maybe somebody knows about it, but they haven't listened to it, or maybe they know of the genre. But when I think of obscure artists, I think of bands that are mixing so many genres together that you cannot there's no way you can even get close to categorizing it because it's so far out there. And when you hear it, it just kind of makes you frown almost, because it's something like you're just not appalled by, but something you've never heard in your life. And that's my definition of obscure. What do you think about those views?
Well, see, you've got me beat on that, because there's a little bit of that stuff I can listen to, but a lot of it, you know, I don't listen to a whole lot of stuff unless I can, you know, listen to it for some sort of an extended period. And so, I mean, if it's something that, you know, I have to sit there and, like, frown at, I'm listening to, chances are I'm not going to go back to it a whole lot. So whenever I was choosing mine, I just went to YouTube. I went through, like, my iPhone or my iPod, whatever, and I was just looking at band names. And I'm like, okay, well, I think nobody's heard of these guys, so I went to YouTube and checked it in. And as long as it was under 100,000 views for most of their videos, I put them on my list.
And some of them were less, like way less than that.
Oh, yeah, one of them I think was 600 views, and I don't actually understand that one at all.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, hey, I guess it's the way it works. So, I mean, that's what I did. And, you know, I mean, I've got a couple of them that are very, very strange. Like, you know, you have to be a fan of the genres to ever come across it.
Right.
But for the most part, I mean, I don't have anything near as weird as, well, 4 of yours.
All of mine, pretty much.
Yeah, one of them is amazing, but, you know, a couple of them are, you just kind of have to look at it, and that's when you raise the eyebrow and wonder what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and, you know, that's one thing that I'll say about my style of music, that, you know, I like reaching out and finding these crazy weird bands just because I like to broaden the spectrum. Some of these bands, I may go out and buy the album, some of them I might not, but at least I'm aware of them, and if they're on, I'll check them out, and I kind of know the backstory of them and all that good stuff. And I just encourage people to, you know, if you don't like anything if you don't like any of the artists that we're doing on the show today, that's perfectly fine, but I like to talk about obscure artists just because I like to get people to kind of open their mind to more genres, because we might talk about some of these groups here tonight, and they might be kind of the subgenre or in a genre, and maybe somebody looks them up, and then all of a sudden that leads them to other bands. What do you think?
I agree, and that's one thing that's good about it. I mean, some of the choices here will lead you to other things, and that's never a bad thing. So.
And then some of these choices are going to stop you dead in your tracks because there's nothing else like it. So let's get started. Go ahead and take one of yours.
Well, I'll go with one of my, I guess, more mainstream styles anyway, and that's Cage.
Oh yeah.
And Cage is, I mean, it's power metal. It's the high vocals in the album. Oh crap, what was the album I got? I forgot to write it down.
Is it Hell Destroyer?
I think it's actually just called Hell Destroyer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first song I heard was Hell Destroyer, and the opening vocals of that. I mean, the dude hits a pitch that just is unreal, and it's absolutely amazing. And I can't help but just like raise my fist in the air. And that album is a very strange take on like the end of days, and I do mean the biblical end of days. And like it combines a lot of your kind of paranoid conspiracy theories in a very metal way. Like it has the Christ hammer.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, that ought to tell you something right there. But the band, I mean, it's power metal, it's out there, and they have a hell of a lot of fun doing it. I know you've listened to them. What do you think?
Well, the first thing I'll say is if you see something in this album and you think that you're not going to like it because they mention something about Christianity, please just disregard that. If you don't like this album for the vocals right off the bat, that's something amazing. But let me ask you, is this actually a Christian metal band, or do they just use that as storytelling?
I think, honestly, they did it for a concept album.
Well, because I listened to some of their other stuff, and it seemed like it had those themes going throughout some of their other albums.
Yeah, I mean, I think the themes and stuff are there, but like if you go on like their Facebook page and everything, they talk a lot about like partying and stuff like that. I was seeing at least at one point.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a little bit different. I mean, you can have the themes, you can still have a good time and everything. But
well, like you said, a Christ hammer. I mean, come on, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is, and it's all over the top, kind of your battle type music and everything. It's your traditional kind of power metal symbolism and everything thrown in, especially with that Hell Destroyer album.
Go ahead.
Kind of Bohemian Grove and Illuminati kind of imagery and stuff in there, which I think is absolutely hilarious, especially the way they put it together. I thought was absolutely great.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one thing I like about them, they are power metal, like you said, but they do it so well, and it's so much heavier. It doesn't have this light fairy feel to it. It's serious in your face metal. And I would say that there's two things that I want to put them into the kind of obscure. And one we already talked about, and that was just the themes. Most of the time, if people think of biblical-based themes, they're not going to think about a Christ hammer, and they're not going to think about Hell Destroyer. They're going to think about these other kind of nice, I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I want to mention is the vocals. As much as I love the high-pitched vocals, it's like death metal. You either love them or you hate them. There's really no in-between on high-pitched vocals. So that's two things I would put them in the category for being obscure. What do you think?
I agree. The vocals, to me, is honestly what sold the album to me the first time. I mean, listen to Hell Destroyer, and the note he hits, if you love that, you will love the album. And then, I mean, just like you said, the themes they crack me up, because whenever I first heard of Cage, I was actually searching for Christian heavy metal bands, and their name came up on a list. So I'm like, hey, well, I'll check them out. And then I heard that and saw Christ Hammer, and I don't believe in a lot of the paranoid conspiracy stuff, but I enjoy reading about them, and I found everything I love: power metal, high vocals, screeching, powerful guitars, and Illuminati imagery. So, I mean, if that's not, a combination, I don't know what is.
Since we're talking Illuminati, it has to do with politics. Let's talk a little Sons of Liberty.
Oh, dude, I love that band.
Go ahead, it's your band. Talk them up.
I hated kind of putting these guys on the list because everybody knows John Schaefer. And
for those of you who don't know, John Schaefer from Iced Earth.
Yeah, he's one of the guys. He's the guitar player from Iced Earth and everything. He is a very politically minded guy, and the Sons of Liberty is his kind of political band, and they get into a lot of kind of conspiracy stuff and all that, and I don't know that I agree with everything, but the songs are still really good. But they're a little weird. Like I said, it's kind of out there. If you're a fan of like Ron Paul and conspiracies, you'll probably actually enjoy it. What do you think?
I think they're a great band from looking at it as a musical standpoint. He sings on this album, great vocals. I would say this is more in vein of like classic heavy metal or a little bit of power metal, but it's very good. I love listening to all the stuff. And personally, I like a lot of the political themes that they talk about, but I think we're going to put this, for me, in the obscure category for a couple reasons. Number one, I know politics are involved in music, but this is maybe one of the first times I've ever seen a band form for politics. Have you seen anything else that comes close to this?
Not in this genre, anyway. And usually if it does, it's like Toby Keith, and you just want to slap yourself in the face.
No, I'm saying like the band formed, and everything about them is politics. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's actually true, because this band was literally formed to get his political views out. That was why it was brought together. I mean, it's like a couple of the guys, I think, from Iced Earth, and I don't remember who else. But yeah, was literally formed based on the Sons of Liberty, which, dates back to like the revolutionary times and everything. And, Brushfires of the Mind, and it goes back into all of that stuff. And every single song is political. Every single song is, an expression of his views. And like you said, that is actually a very kind of strange thing, because you don't see bands actually forming for political reasons like that.
And another reason I'll put them in the obscure category is their political views. This isn't a political show, but let's face it. The band's political views aren't exactly popular, so I would say that's a little obscure, especially with the conspiracy theory stuff.
Oh yeah, they're far, far from mainstream. It's, it depends on which way you lean politically, but it could be like everything you fear about the Tea Party, or everything you've ever heard bad about libertarians and, anarchists and stuff like that. And it's, hell, the guy has a song about, it's called The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is literally talking about the Federal Reserve. Mm-hmm. And so if that doesn't, kind of perk your ears up, about, political theories and stuff like that, you should do some research for one. But for two, there's kind of an idea behind people who kind of go after the Federal Reserve, and for him to put it on an album, yeah, I think, it seems almost like a extremist type view anymore, is where it seems. I don't think it's as extreme as a lot of people like to think, but, like you said, it's, for him to actually put these out there and everything, I think definitely makes it an obscure pick.
And I think that's one thing that's missing in music. To me, music is not scary anymore, and it used to be on many different levels, whether it was for shock, whether it was for political views. Music used to be something that what these guys are doing, and they're getting their message out there and taking a stand. And, some bands do this, obviously this band does, and some other bands touch on it. I know Rage Against the Machine, that was a big thing behind them, but I don't think they formed based on getting a political message out. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
No, I think with Rage Against the Machine, it was more like, I think there were sympathetic political views among all the members, but I don't think that was specifically why until they started those songs really became popular and everything. I don't know. Maybe that's completely out of line. But I just, I didn't think Zach and Tom got together hey, you know what? I want to make a band talking about the evils of capitalism.
Yeah.
They may have. If they did, that's great. Prove me wrong. That's fantastic. But anyway, it's kind of you have your Rage Against the Machine, evils of capitalism, Sons of Liberty, evils of government. So, take it for what it's worth.
All right, so I'm going to go with one of my picks, and Brent, I know you're pretty familiar with this guy, and believe it or not, this guy's pretty popular, and that's Wesley Willis. You constantly hear of different celebrities, different musicians. When he was alive, they were trying to get interviews with him or do shows with him or whatever, all collaborations, all kinds of good stuff. But when I first heard Wesley Willis, I did the eyebrow thing I was telling you about earlier. I was like, what the heck is this? And it turns out that he was a schizophrenic guy that would just put out music, and I don't remember how, but he's got like thousands of songs and like 50 or 60 albums. All the songs sound the same, but the lyrics change just a little bit. The lyrics are completely over the top, and the average person that hears this is not going to like it, but then the more you listen to it, it's just fun music. What do you think about Wesley Willis?
I can't help but laugh when I think about it. And I remember whenever you were first playing this, I think I did the whole eyebrow raise at you and like shook my head. And
Probably.
it's so bizarre. And I mean, half of it doesn't even make sense. But at the same time, there's something there that, I hate to say it this way, but there's an honesty there. Really, there is.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point.
And, you don't see that in some stuff. And I mean, for one, the dude was who he was. And that's fantastic. And, it may not be your style of music, but at least give it a chance. I was amazed, like, after the guy died, how many celebrities, and I mean, like, big name celebrities that, aren't obscure in any way, shape, or form, that was, like, at his funeral and stuff and, like, mourning his loss and everything. And it's like, this is weird. And I think it was honestly because of the honesty that's in it. Yeah, like you said, the guy was a schizophrenic. He had issues, but he was putting music out there and doing what he loved. And, God bless him.
Yeah, and this guy would even sell out small clubs, believe it or not. I mean, we always talk about going to see, like, let's see, Black Dahlia Murder and Skeleton Witch. Let's see, we went to Abigail Williams and Pathology, and at those two shows there was maybe like 200 people combined. And yet this guy can sell out small clubs when he played all around. So that's really just amazing to me. And then kind of a side note, he also did street artwork. He was homeless, so he would sit on the street and just draw with ink pens. And if you go on eBay now, his artwork that he did in ink pens, drawing the buildings and the skyline and whatnot of Chicago, they go for like hundreds of dollars now. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Oh, wow. That's wild. I had never even heard that.
All right, so let's move on to another schizophrenic. This is a local guy, actually. This guy's from Springfield, Missouri, and he's in a lot of different things, and this is the ultimate of obscurity for me. I think everything this guy does is pretty much awesome. It's very similar to Wesley Willis, and that's Skip Skiffington. And he's in a ton of different bands. Probably the one you're going to find the most of is called The Elite. But he's played with several different bands, and he's even recorded music with former Death drummer Richard Christy, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
And he's been on, and both of them have been on Howard Stern's show. And so this guy is very similar to Wesley Willis, but on a totally different aspect. There's a lot more music and band involved. It's not just the keyboard. And these guys just let loose, and it's funny, but it's kind of, again, I think there's an honesty to it, regardless of whether you want to laugh at it or jam to it. I know you haven't heard a lot of his, but the little bit you've heard, what do you think?
It's, I'll call it interesting. I don't dislike it. It's something that, I'd have to listen to a little bit more. But it's very, we'll just call it strange, honestly, because the first song I listened to was called Toads. And, he was talking about how they killed all the toads in Missouri, and that's why he's in Florida, is because that's where all the toads are. And, I mean, that's just weird to me,
And the singing is always, like, offbeat with the music, and then sometimes the band just decides to, like, freeform jam while he's just talking, and it's weird.
Yeah, and, so it's, like I said, it's something I don't know that I'm going to, really jam and rock out a lot, but it's something that, I feel better for having heard it.
And this is one of those band or group singers, artists, whatever, that you might have trouble finding their stuff. Of course, you can YouTube and find some of his videos and songs and stuff like that, but if you want a physical copy of his music, I'm not sure. I've looked around online, and I couldn't really find any. I ended up getting some through some individuals, just kind of word of mouth, locally. I ended up getting 2 of his albums, but that's, if you like Wesley Willis, then you're probably going to want to check this out whether you like it or not. So what's another band that you had on your list?
One I have is, to me, it was very, very strange whenever I found them, because I was actually looking up throat singing. And yeah, Tibetan throat singing, that's something I listen to for fun. Should have put that on the obscure list.
Hey, you just did.
But anyway, the name of the band, and I'm probably butchering this, is like Tangier Cavalry.
We're notorious for pronouncing band names wrong, so go ahead.
Yeah, hell, screw it up, that's fine. Uh, anyway, they are a Mongolian kind of folk black metal band. And I was, like I said, I was looking at throat singing videos because that is such a unique, amazing talent to me. That
I
people can
totally
do
agree.
that. And so, I was listening to that and I saw, this little Tangier Cavalry, thing pop up on YouTube, the recommended videos. So I click on it and I was absolutely blown away. Because, I mean, here you've got this just like black metal stuff and very weird rhythms. And then all of a sudden, like, breaks out throat singing. And I'm like, dude, what the hell is this? This is amazing. And come to find out, it was a Mongolian band. And that, to me, seems like the ultimate obscurity whenever you're a Mongolian black metal band who uses throat singing sometimes.
Yeah, and they use a lot of authentic instruments for their area too. It's not just guitar, drums, bass. They use some very interesting instruments. And back to the throat singing for a second, I think that stuff's awesome. And believe it or not, the first time I heard that stuff, it was either on the movie or a soundtrack for Mortal Kombat. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when you first showed me this band quite a while back, and I was checking them out, and I heard the throat singing, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard this stuff before, and I always thought that stuff was awesome. I think this band's awesome regardless of the throat singing, just because it's an original sound. You're not going to get the Dark Throne, Emperor style black metal. It's black metal, but it's different and has their own kind of cultural taste on it. And the throat singing just kind of tops it off for me. Have you looked? Is there stuff widely available online to buy?
It's available online, I know. They're actually really starting to push it pretty hard. Like, if you like their Facebook page and everything, they're trying to really push it real hard. And I haven't been able to get my hands on any of it, mainly because I've been completely broke.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, yeah, you can find it. There's a lot of it on YouTube. So, I mean, you can YouTube all of it. And like I said, if you like their Facebook page, they have quite a few links and stuff. You may have to buy it literally from, I don't know if is it called Mongolia anymore, or is it just part of China now?
I don't know. I can't keep up with it.
Either way, you're probably buying it from there. So, the shipping and everything may suck. But, chances are you might be able to find it at a local store or something. I don't know. But either way, it's definitely worth checking out. I mean, it's Mongolian black metal. I keep going there, but they keep referring to their music as like, if Genghis Khan played black metal. And that's exactly what it is. And
I was just getting ready to say that's pretty much what it is when you listen to it. So, all right, next on my list is a band that I know you, I think you were almost speechless, and that's Horse the Band. This band, I don't know if they're I know they've been fairly successful and they're fairly popular, believe it or not, but I don't know if they're trying to write music seriously or if it's kind of a joke or maybe kind of a mix between the two. I'm really not completely sure, but they kind of mix synth pop with 8-bit Nintendo noises, hardcore, and then some Dillinger Escape Plan, just madness stuff. So if you want something, and then they have a whole EP about pizza. Every single song is about pizza. So Brent, what's your thoughts on Horse the Band? I know it's probably not going to be much, but
honestly, I actually kind of dug the song I listened to. I don't remember which one it is.
Really?
I've never heard of them until now. I mean, it's so out there, and it's so weird and so different. I actually kind of enjoy this in some weird, almost perverse way, and I don't mean sexually perverse. Let's just cut that out. I mean, just in some weird way, the music's it's just hilarious. And like you said, you don't know if you're to take it seriously or not. And that just kind of drew me into it and sitting here listening to it. I mean, they were doing this kind of pop stuff, and I was watching the video for it. And then next thing I know, the dude's doing growls and stuff, and I'm like, What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, and their videos are a mess too.
Oh yeah, one guy sitting there playing guitars, laying in it looks like some sort of overgrown beanbag chair.
Yeah.
Or something. And I'm like, what? And there's you think this woman's standing there, so you think she's getting involved for her. No, she's just standing there. And it's just the whole thing is just weird and just basically beyond description in all reality. It's something to check out, but I actually didn't dislike it at all. It was something that was kind of interesting.
Maybe I mistake that band for another band we'll talk about here in a minute. But go ahead with your next.
With my next, we're going to go to another band whose name I'm going to absolutely butcher.
Man, we are on a roll with butchering names the last few shows.
Yeah. And sadly, that's the trend probably continue until I learn to use the interwebs and actually look up how to do it, correctly. This is a band called Svartsot or Swartsot or something. I don't know. Svartsot. If you can pronounce it right, give us an email. Tell me how the hell to do it. I'll do it.
And you can do that at thevaultmusic1@gmail.com or on Twitter at thevaultmusic1. Please tell us how to pronounce these band names.
I'm begging you, please. Anyway, I was looking. I have a thing for like heavy folk metal, and that's one reason I love black metal. Just as an aside, I think we've talked about it a little bit. But anyway, and I came across this band mainly because their lead singer is known for playing the tin whistle. Yeah.
I know them, and I don't know why I did not know that.
Well, that's kind of part of their music. It's kind of, I guess it's more like death metal than I guess it would be like black metal or anything. But they're from, I can't believe I forgot to write it down. I want to say like Finland or something, maybe somewhere around that general vicinity. Hungary, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, they're foreign. None of their stuff's in English. I actually saw a translation for one of their songs, and it was actually kind of sick. I mean, it was a very bizarre song, and it was actually pretty neat. But anyway, yeah, the lead singer likes to play the tin whistle. And so you've got these like kind of death metal growls, very kind of Cookie Monster sounds. And then all of a sudden he breaks into like a tin whistle solo. And you just kind of have to wonder what the hell's going on with that. I mean, am I just way off base, or is that just kind of like not the weirdest thing you've ever heard?
No, it's definitely a weird mix, and I did figure out they're a Danish band.
There it is, Danish.
So yeah, we're in the general vicinity, I suppose.
Yeah.
But anyway, the first time I heard this band, I was like, okay, this is kind of a heavier folk, like you said, maybe even on the verge of like a power metal, death metal, but a lot heavier. And then all of a sudden I heard the guy sing, and I'm like, wow, this just pushed this over the top. Like this is one of the deepest Cookie Monster vocals that I've ever heard. Besides you can find bands like Mortician or like Putrid Pile, but it's more just kind of a ooh, just like one monotone, like low. But this is actually, you can tell he's singing in the Cookie Monster, like a Cannibal Corpse, like a 6 Feet Under. But this is like low, and it's just super awesome. And I knew there was the whistle, but I didn't know that was him. I thought it was just another band member.
I think it's actually him. And if I remember correctly, I mean, it's been, a little bit since I looked into him. I know their first album, it's him doing it. And that was kind of one of the draws of the band, believe it or not, is he plays a tin whistle.
You say that, and all I can picture him doing is when the music comes to that, him standing on one leg like Jethro Tull.
That's like the greatest thing I've ever heard.
It's a great visual for everyone. And yeah. By the way, if you don't know Jethro Tull, guys, go check them out. That's another band that we could have easily put on this list for being obscure. Definitely awesome old prog rock stuff. Check that out. But next on my list, I'm going to go with a band that I am pretty sure you don't know of, and that's Goat. And this band's kind of got a mystique around them. I don't know that anybody knows who the band members are. They all wear masks. They don't talk much that I know of. And it's, I'm just going to call it like world music. It's definitely grabbing Middle Eastern music, grabbing some folk music, American folk even. A lot of just interesting things mixed together. And Brent, I don't know, I've never even talked to you. Do you like world music? Like, this band aside, is there any kind of music you like, obviously, besides like throat singing? Anything else you're into from any other different countries?
The only one that really comes to mind is like and I'm probably going to even mispronounce this, but it's like the Humpa music or whatever it's called. that's in some of the like Scandinavian countries and stuff. I know like Korpiklani uses the
Yeah,
rhythms and stuff a
that.
lot.
Yeah, uh-huh.
I mean, it's almost like polka-ish, except not as cheesy.
Well, and they
Uh,
use different instruments to make those. Yeah.
right, yeah, but I mean, there's that, and you said the throat singing and everything, and I don't know. I enjoy a lot of that stuff. I haven't listened to this band at all, but I'm gonna have to because I do enjoy a lot of that stuff. The traditional music and everything. Even like I don't even know. I guess America's Got Bluegrass. But a lot of that stuff I really actually kind of enjoy, mainly just because it's always so different.
I'll tell you what, I'm a huge fan of Middle Eastern music, and I think the sitar is like one of the coolest
Oh
instruments
yeah,
ever made. I mean,
yeah.
I could listen to sitar music all day long with nothing else in it. And going back to this band, the vocals, it's not, we've talked about chanting before, and it's not really chanting, but they're singing, but you can't understand really anything they're saying the way that the vocals are put together and they flow. And I've let a lot of people listen to it and they like the music, but they don't like the vocals. I don't know what country that this vocal style comes from. I know I've heard it before, but I can't place it. But this is probably one of the more digestible bands to listen to, believe it or not, that I've put on my list, because it is music at its core, and it's just a bunch of different styles of world music put together. And all the songs do sound different, so it's not just the same thing all the time. But do you got anything? I think you got one more on your list, right?
Yeah, I've got one more, and it's actually one of my favorite rap groups, and which is kind of weird, honestly, once you figure out. It's 10,000 Cadillacs, and it's Skinny from Mushroomhead and J-Man from Mushroomhead, Jason Thompson. And then it's a guy by the name of Just Mike, who was, we mentioned on the review for Righteous and the Butterfly. He has a guest spot on there. But it is some of the smoothest vocals, like for rap, that I've heard. Just the way it's all said and everything is some of the smoothest I've ever listened to since Bone Thugs. Honestly, it's that smooth. It's just like silk.
And musically too, I think it's the same way.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, this is honestly it's one of my favorite rap groups, period. And it's one of the favorite bands on like the entire list we've gone through here tonight, just because it's just something else. And why this band hasn't really broken out. I mean, I guess they're kind of big around Cleveland, which is where they're from. But outside of that, nobody knows them. And I know at least at one point, you could not buy one of their albums unless you were at one of their shows. And I had a chance to buy one whenever we saw Mushroomhead live in Springfield. And I thought it was one of Mushroomhead's albums, to tell you the honest truth. I didn't even think it was actually a whole different band. I didn't even know them at the time. And I ended up not buying it because of that. And I really wish I would have now. So, I mean, that's one reason they're majorly obscure is because I don't even think they're on a record label, are they? At least that you're aware of?
I'm not sure, and I never see their stuff for sale. And then if you go to their YouTube page, they don't have hardly any views, and you can see the whole album on there. And I don't know if maybe this style is just not resonating with people. I don't know if people were expecting kind of another Mushroomhead knockoff. I don't know. I mean, I can't say I'm as big of a fan of the rap style just because I like. I guess I like the hard stuff, if you would categorize that more, like the gangster rap and stuff like that. A huge Project Pat fan, 3-6 Mafia, that kind of stuff. But it's not bad, and I just keep wondering why does nobody listen to this band? That's what it keeps coming down to for me, because I could see how a lot of people would enjoy this. And the production's really well. Like you said, everything on it's smooth. But I just don't know why they're not well known. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and see, one thing that's actually kind of interesting, and I may be wrong, and feel free to email us or write us or whatever and correct me on this. But I'd read somewhere that Sid off of you'd heard the whole Mushroomhead Slipknot battle or whatever that was that happened, whenever they became popular.
Right.
And basically that was just the fans arguing at each other, and the bands kind of did a little poking, but mainly they didn't care.
Right.
But from what I had heard, it was Sid, and didn't he go as like DJ Starscream or something?
Yeah, that was like a side project thing, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think he actually did some of the scratching and everything for 10,000 Cadillacs on a couple songs. And because I guess somehow they knew each other or something, I don't know, but there's some sort of interaction between like Sid and the 10,000 Cadillacs, or at least with Mushroomhead and everything. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing there too that I found out. Like, it was a long time ago whenever I saw that, but I thought that was strange, especially considering, you know, everybody that was a fan of like new metal and knew Mushroomhead or Slipknot probably had a favorite of their masked band, which was always kind of weird to me. But
one other thing I want to touch on that I'm still kind of shocked by. I'm guilty of this back in the day, and you can speak for yourself. But you know, when I was latching on to these new metal bands, when I was hearing new artists even outside of new metal, oftentimes to just continue to learn new music, I would start buying all these artists' side projects. And, you know, like, I remember I was a huge fan of Korn when they first came out, and then later I just kept following them. And later on, Fieldy's Dreams came out, and I was like, oh, this is going to be cool because I like his bass tone. And then it was like a rap album, and I'm like,
right.
Okay. And then there was a Videodrone, which had something to do with Jonathan Davis, so I was like, oh, I've got to buy that then. So, and then I heard it, and I was like, wow, this is unexpected, but I almost kind of forced myself to listen to it because it was associated. So most of the time, the people who follow Slipknot, Mushroomhead, a lot of these new metal bands, they seem to be a little bit more open-minded to accepting artists that are somehow related to the artist they like. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So my question is then, why is this band not well known?
I really, honestly, I don't know. And like I said, if you listen to them, I think if you're a big fan of the J-Man vocals on Mushroomhead, especially on a song like Womp, where he's, you know, got that real fast kind of rap sound to him and everything, if you like that, that's a lot of the 10,000 Cadillacs. Now, it's a little smoother. He doesn't have, you know, kind of the gravel in the voice when he's doing it. But I don't know why it's not bigger, and it may just be because they don't want it to be, honestly. I mean, it may be one of those that they kind of keep it local. They only play around certain areas, and they don't bother trying to take it on the, you know, big show or big road or whatever. So, you know, that may be part of it. It may just be a fan service thing they do, which, you know, would be really cool if it is. I don't know that. I'm just purely speculating. But it's, you know, when I hear a lot of rap and everything, a lot of rap nowadays is lazy.
Yeah.
And
the music is lazy too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good stuff out there. I like 3-6. I haven't listened to a whole lot of like Project Pat or anything, but a lot of it is just kind of the same old stuff, same old themes, same old this, same old that. And this is something kind of completely different. And maybe it's just because they got two white guys.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that may be part of the problem. I don't want to try to get racist or anything with it. It's just rap, white guy. Other than Eminem and maybe a couple others, you really don't see a whole lot of that. And it seems hard for them to break in and maybe become really popular. I don't know if that'd be part of it or not. I could be way off base with that.
Well, and going back to what you said about how maybe they don't mean it to be popular, you know, maybe this is just kind of a side thing that they want to do, and they'll just play local shows, they'll just sell the albums when they can, and they're not going to worry about it. And, you know, we were talking about honesty with Wesley Willis, how he could care less what anybody thinks about his stuff. It all sounds the same. You know, again, honesty, and that's one thing that I think might be good about this band, and it makes me almost want to go listen to them even more, is the appreciation of them kind of doing what they want and not worrying about trying to get popular or trying to get big or selling million albums. They're, you know, if the fans want the albums, they'll figure out a way to get it, and that's why they're on the obscurity list for me.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so I've got 2 picks left. One of them is maybe the weirdest one we've had yet, and one of them is, in my opinion, probably one of my favorites. Let's start off with one of the weirdest. I kind of heard of these guys getting together, a super group of sorts, different members from different kinds of genres of bands and everything, and I finally heard them, and I was like, this is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard, but I loved it, and that's Colonel Claypool's Bucket of Bernie Brains. And if I know Bernie, I believe he was that name because he's the keyboard player or something in the band, and they have Buckethead who played with Guns N' Roses and, you know, multiple other solo stuff. Claypool, Les Claypool from Primus, and then they have all kinds of other people. They have people playing weird instruments. They have a chick playing a sitar. They move members around a lot, and it's kind of just a weird free-form jam band is kind of what it reminds me of. But there's just some really, really odd stuff going on. So what did you think of this band?
Whenever I tried to watch like some of their stuff on YouTube, and I say try not because it's awful, but because it's so hard to find anything other than just like concert footage.
Yeah.
And so I started watching the concert footage because a lot of times, live band, it's better and everything. But I started listening to it, and you don't know if they're actually playing any songs or if they're just going to start jamming and, just, going through this whole little kind of free-form thing and then just start kind of, jerking around a little bit and then start doing it again. I mean, it's a very just weird, odd setup. And, I mean, of course, that's kind of Les Claypool, too.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude's he's out there. But, so, like I said, it was one of those trying to listen to it. It was very hard to pin anything down because you're watching it and it's just like nothing but like, you said it great with like freeform, like almost like jazz. It's not jazz type music, but like, a freeform jazz band where it's like everybody's playing their own little thing and just kind of jamming together.
Yeah, that you couldn't have said it any better. Everybody kind of doing their own thing, but somehow it goes together at certain points, and then it diverts again from there. But I think they only have like 1 or 2 albums. So, the music is kind of hard to find, and then you just got to go look at all their live stuff. But I would definitely check them out. I'm not saying anybody's going to like them or that you should like them. It's just one of those bands that's kind of out there, but I think they're good enough to be mentioned. It's something that I like to listen to every now and then, just because I like to step outside the box and not listen to the same thing all the time. But last band on the list, this is a band I found last year, and I heard one of the songs, and I was completely blown away, so then I listened to the rest of the album. I still have not purchased it yet because I just haven't got around to it, and, we put a lot of money into doing this show, which, speaking of that, if you want to help contribute to the show, you can go to patreon.com/thevault. We've got T-shirts, stickers, shout-outs, sponsorships, all kinds of awesome stuff you can do if you want to give to the show monetarily, and we'll get back to you, as well as continuing to produce all of this content for free. But let's get on to this last band, and that's Hail Spirit Nor, and the album specifically I want to talk about is Oi Magoy. If that term right there for the album title doesn't explain it, I don't know what will. This is a progressive black metal psychedelic band. Now, try to wrap your head around all 3 of those genres, and if you can imagine what it sounds like, that's probably what it sounds like. I think this band does every one of those styles perfectly, blends it together perfectly, and just when you think you're listening to kind of a cool 70s hard rock psychedelic song, it kind of goes into this weird freeform jam thing, and then you start getting those deep growling black metal vocals. So what'd you think of this band, the little bit you've heard of them, Brent?
I know you sent me a link here a while back, and I listened to it.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it, but for some reason I never got back around into it, so I was listening to it some for the show prep, and honestly, I'm blown away. I really, truly am. Because, like you said, they do so many weird, different things, and they put it together, and it's actually fantastic. And there's a feel to the band that I absolutely enjoy. I mean, I really don't know how to say it because it is kind of that weird. Because I think the song you sent me, I didn't even think it was black metal.
Yeah, their songs are all different. I mean, and there's some that kind of sound more black metal, and then there's some that don't sound like metal at all. And then there's some that just kind of blend it all together perfectly. I mean, I just think the whole album, it's definitely something I'm going to have to track down and buy, whether I got to buy it online or whatever. It's most likely the case. I'm going to have to break down and buy it because it's that good. I mean, that's one of those that I think fits this thing perfectly. It's obscure, it's awesome, and it's something that I would recommend. I would recommend this out of my picks over anything else. So.
Yeah, and honestly, it is something that if you're a fan of, if you're a fan of music, I think they definitely need to be checked out. But this kind of actually, you were talking about Goat, and I hate to kind of go back. Did you have anything else on Hail?
No. I mean, other than just if that's a band that everybody needs to check out. I mean, the only thing that you may not dig is the vocals, and that's fine. But musically, it's one of the most amazing things I've ever heard. But yeah, go ahead with Goat.
Well, it's not actually about Goat. It just for some reason, talking about Hail Spirit Noir made me think GOAT, which took me around to this other tangent as well. Consider this kind of a, I guess, honorable mention for obscure bands. And it's not a band I actually enjoy listening to, but it's one that I think fits this absolutely perfectly. And I know I talked about it, I think, on another show before. It's Stalag and like Gulag or Galag or something like that. And it's an anonymous band. Nobody knows any of them. At one point, like they don't tour or anything like at all. At one point, they were actually recording the screams of actual people in insane asylums. And
yeah, I remember us talking about that, yeah.
And they used that for the vocal tracks. And it is some of the creepiest music I have ever listened to in my entire life. I mean, it's so out there, I can't even really describe it. I don't know if you ever bothered listening to them or not.
No, and it's not because I don't want to. It's just because, you get lost in the shuffle. I mean, you're trying to keep up with so many bands and check out all these new bands. And, I mean, there's bands that I check out that, like the Hail Spirit Noir. I heard that like a year ago, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to buy this album. And the next thing I know, I completely forgot their names, so I had to go backtrack some notes I had made. And, yes, that's another thing I recommend you guys do. If you hear bands you like, make notes. Because then you could go back to it and you'll have all that information that you need to have when it's time to buy it online or go to the store and get it. If there even are still record stores, there's not too many left. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I want to check that band out. It's just something I'm going to have to do, and maybe we'll be sharing that. We'll make it a point to share this on Facebook so everybody can see it. But since we're talking honorable mention, I do want to mention one more, and it's not exactly. I mean, I think it's obscure just because the two styles that they mix. And that's Panopticon and their mix of black metal and bluegrass.
Yeah, and that's fantastic.
And a lot of these European bands we talk about, they do their folk music with their metal, and this is our American folk music essentially is bluegrass.
Yep.
And it's done so well. It's just like we were talking about Hail Spirit Noir and how they can blend psychedelic black metal and progressive rock and blend it all together. And that's what Panopticon does with their bluegrass and their metal. And I just am amazed when I listen to some of that music. And not only that, I believe that's a one-man band. I think there's one guy that's doing all those instruments, including, mandolin, fiddle, banjo, all that stuff. He's playing all that stuff. So that's just one more band I wanted to mention.
Yeah, no, whenever you sent me a link to Panopticon, you're like, dude, you have to check these guys out. And it was like a cover of an old bluegrass song. Or actually, it was an old folk song. I don't remember the actual name of it now. But, it's one that's been out there since, I don't know, for a long-ass time anyway. And I'm like, dude, this is really cool. This is an awesome-ass cover. So I clicked on something else, and it was like just pure black metal. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you start digging into it, and like you said, it's absolutely fantastic. I almost included them on this. But for some reason, I decided to go with something else. I don't know what it was, or why. But they did run through my mind on this, so I'm glad you brought them up, because there's something everybody definitely needs to check out.
Yeah, and we could go on and on. I'm sure if we really dug into our collections, we could start finding some really weird stuff. In fact, I'm going to do a review pretty soon. I picked up a Mr. Rogers album at a flea market not too long ago.
Uh-oh.
So we're going to be jamming out to some Mr. Rogers. But with that, we're going to end up closing the show for today. Thanks to everybody for listening. Don't forget, you can check us out at thevaultreviews.com. Send us an email, thevaultmusic1@gmail.com. Twitter @thevaultmusic1. Facebook.com/thevaultrvws. And, of course, you can check out everything we do on YouTube and Podomatic, which I believe our site is thevaultreviews.podomatic.com. So thanks again for listening. See ya.
Peace.